Okay, so one thing we'd like to know is if we did win the grant, the $5,000 grant, what would you guys do with it?
So probably with the extra $5,000, we would put it towards one of our initiatives that we're currently trying to grow. So those are kind of two things we're working on right now. The first is our employment program. So that kind of formally started about 1.5 years ago, and since then we've really been trying to get more resources to expand the program, help more kids get employed. The second thing would be more support for mental health. So right now it's about 30% of our clients have some sort of mental health issue, and we currently can support them to an extent. Our staff are mostly child and youth workers who can do kind of basic counseling, but we would love to be able to hire like a psychologist or psychiatrist who could work here a couple days a week and help with some of the more significant mental health issues.
Right. So the question is, what makes your charity different from other youth homeless charity or shelters?
Yeah, so there are about 12 youth shelters in the city, and we all offer kind of similar services, but what makes us different are a couple things. First is our location. So we're the only shelter on the West End, we're the only one in Etobicoke. Because of that, we're one of the most highly used shelters in the city. So we're full pretty much every night of the year. Other shelters, maybe they're operating around 85% capacity. So our location really makes us unique. The second thing is we have a stay-in-school program, which is basically kind of long-term transitional housing that gives all the kids the specific supports they need to be successful in school. And so that program is the only one of its kind in the city, and all the shelters refer kids to this one program. Otherwise, some of the shelters in the city have a specific population they're targeting, so like women only, or lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered youth only, or youth with addiction issues. But for us, we're co-ed, we're open to everyone. As long as you're within our age range, you're welcome. So we don't have any restrictions that way either. So I guess those are the kind of things that make us different from the other shelters.
This is kind of just like a side question. Well, of course you'll get clients that also have like addiction issues. They're lesbian, gay, bisexual. Do you employ like different strategies to deal with to counsel individual types of problems that lead to youth homelessness? Or?
Yeah. So 80% of our staff are child and youth workers, so they're trained to deal with a whole range of issues that affect youth. So they can handle kind of a lot of that, but also we're a huge referral agency, so we know a ton of resources in the city that we can direct youth to that are free and that help all sorts of different populations of kids. So that's kind of primarily what we do, but we also just have across the board, no bullying, no threats, no discrimination, none of that's kind of happening in the shelter. And so we also run all sorts of awareness programs, so teaching kids about addiction issues, teaching kids about lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered youth, no matter who they are, so that way there's less discrimination and that kind of thing happening within the shelter.
Okay.
One other question we had was just the story of how the shelter got started.
So we were started in 1986, so 26 years ago, and we were started by kind of a group of teachers and guidance counselors from the Etobicoke area, the local high schools. And at the time, they were realizing that their youth and their students were struggling with issues of homelessness, and the only option at the time was to send them downtown to one of the big shelters downtown. So they'd have to leave their school, leave their community, leave their friends, and they were concerned going downtown, maybe they'd be more likely to get involved with prostitution or gangs or drugs or whatever. So they wanted an option in the suburbs in Etobicoke where kids could stay at their local schools, could stay in their community, and that was kind of removed from the downtown core in just a normal neighborhood. So that's how we started, and since then we've grown a ton. We've doubled in size, we've added a whole bunch of services and programs, and that's basically it.
And also, what are your plans for the future?
So I guess our goal is to continue to meet the needs as they arise, but what looks like it's going to be a need is for us to expand our services. So right now we have 50 beds, and like I say, we're full all the time. So we're going to need to either get a new facility or a bigger facility that has more beds, has more office space, has more storage space. You can see this is our boardroom and it's got stuff everywhere and we have staff working here. We would also love to have more recreational space like a gym or a basketball court or something like that. So that's kind of a long-term goal that we have. But I don't know when we'll be able to achieve it because it's a huge financial cost. But
Also, why did you personally decide to work or volunteer here?
I work here, and I've worked in the nonprofit charity sector for a long time, but I used to work primarily with international charities. So I was overseas working in Africa and Asia and doing stuff over there, and then I just been away for a long time. I wanted to come home, do something local, and so that's how I got started here. But it's actually turned out to be really good. I didn't know if that was what interests me, but it's really neat because the kids you're helping, you know their names, they stop in your office, they say hello, and you get to watch them move from somebody who's just come off the streets and is struggling with all sorts of issues to living independently, graduating high school, getting jobs, and so you get to see the whole transition every day, and so it's been really neat.
Like how do the kids on the street, how do they come to Youth Without Shelter? Like, do they know that Youth Without Shelter is an option for them, or like how are they aware?
I mean, they find out about us a whole bunch of different ways. A big one's just word of mouth. A lot of kids who are living on the streets and living in shelters, they know each other, and kind of word spreads about where a good place is to go. Otherwise, we Google really easily. Our name is just usually it's one of the first things that pops up when you Google Youth Shelter Toronto. Otherwise, there's a shelter hotline in the city, so if a lot of youth call the shelter hotline and then they refer people to whichever shelter makes the most sense for them. Teachers, guidance counselors, social workers, police officers, they all send kids here. As well, we're the closest shelter to the airport, so the Red Cross often brings refugees from other countries directly here. So I would say those are kind of the biggest referral sources.
Also, what do you do when you're full? Do you recommend for kids to go to a different shelter? Or?
Yeah, exactly right. So if someone calls and we're full, we can try to find them a bed in a different place and give them directions to get there and give them a token to get there if they're at our doorstep, you know.
All right, thank you.